My name is Juliette Fontaine. I'm 30 years old and a digital illustrator trying to make a name for myself in Paris's fiercely competitive art scene. Last Wednesday, I found myself standing inside Galerie Eclat, a gleaming jewelry boutique tucked into a sun-drenched corner of Avenue Montaigne. I was admiring a pair of emerald earrings I had coveted for more than a year. Every brushstroke I made, every all-nighter fueled by cheap coffee and stubborn hope, had led to this moment. Through nearly a decade of freelancing, of skipping proper meals just to keep a tiny studio apartment, I'd finally landed a contract with Maison Verini, a renowned luxury fashion house. It was my quiet, hard-earned victory. But before I could even let the joy settle in my chest, the boutique doors swung open. My sister, Margot. She was 33, and her eyes, sharp, cold, familiar, burned with the kind of fury only old wounds could summon. Without warning, without a word, she crossed the room and slapped me hard across the face. The sound cracked through the boutique's polished silence. Heads turned. I stood frozen, the sting blooming hot across my skin. In that instant, something shifted. The life I had been building, bit by bit, thread by thread, suddenly unraveled into a story I hadn't prepared to tell. If you're still listening, we want to sincerely thank you for spending your time with us. Truly means a lot. We'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments and let's see how far this message has reached. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I highly recommend doing it now so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. These aren't just ordinary stories, they're filled with meaningful life lessons that can inspire, teach, and stay with you long after the video ends. Hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. Growing up in a sun-drenched villa nestled among the olive trees of Aix-en-Provence, life always seemed to circle around Margot. She was the star, there was no denying it. With her honey blonde waves and that effortless way of slipping into any conversation like she belonged, Margot had an innate magnetism. Even as children, she would parade through our garden parties in mismatched high heels and Maman's old scarves, commanding everyone's attention like a young Brigitte Bardot. Papa, a history professor with a love for Roman architecture, would smile indulgently. Maman, between baking lemon tarts and running her little cafe, seemed to have infinite reserves of energy when it came to Margot's ambitions. They weren't wealthy. Far from it. But what they had, they funneled toward Margot, her photography workshops in Marseille, her first Canon DSLR, a trip to Paris Fashion Week when she was just 17. I still remember standing at the train station that morning, holding her suitcase while she adjusted her wide-brimmed hat and reapplied gloss. "You're so steady, Juliette," Maman whispered beside me, as if that steadiness meant I didn't long for any of those chances too. While Margot was being styled and staged, I was in the attic. My world smelled of old paper and graphite. I taught myself to draw shadows by candlelight, pinching euros from tutoring sessions to buy my first secondhand graphics tablet. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. My wins weren't paraded or toasted with Bordeaux, they were quiet things. A compliment from a client. A drawing reposted on a design blog. A late-night email that said, "We'd love to feature your work." By 23, I couldn't take it anymore. I packed a suitcase and left for Paris with a freelance contract and a rented room the size of a closet. Margot, of course, stayed behind in Aix, still sipping lavender lattes on the cafe terrace with our parents, her lifestyle gently cushioned by their generosity. When she turned 29, they gave her a deposit for a sleek apartment in Nice, complete with sea-facing windows and space for a vanity mirror she'd never use. The reason? She had just finished an online influencer course. I didn't ask what that entailed. Meanwhile, I was clawing my way up from the bottom. I freelanced for anyone who would pay, children's books, corporate logos, editorial spreads, while taking night classes at the École Supérieure des Arts Graphiques. It was lonely, exhausting work. But slowly, I built something that felt like a future. When I was offered the lead design role at Studio Lumière, I didn't even cry. I just sat there in silence, the kind of silence that comes from years of waiting for someone else to clap. Then came the Maison Verini contract, a luxury fashion brand, campaign to redefine their digital aesthetic. They said my work felt fresh, grounded, Parisian. They said they wanted me. Contract came with a bonus large enough that, for the first time, I could afford something truly decadent. Not for show, not for social media, but for me. Those emerald earrings shimmered with more than color. They were hours of unpaid work, rejection emails, and cold winters in an unheated flat. They were a declaration that I mattered too. The Sunday before Margot slapped me in that boutique, we had our monthly family dinner. It was warm, nostalgic. The air smelled of rosemary chicken and baked figs. I had planned to share my news that evening, even practiced how I'd say it. "I've signed with Maison Verini," I imagined myself saying calmly, casually, like it wasn't the biggest moment of my career. But as always, Margot beat me to it. "Antoine proposed," she beamed, lifting her hand as if she were the center of a bridal magazine spread. A ruby the size of a grape caught the candlelight and everyone's attention. Gasps, squeals, champagne. Maman nearly dropped the bowl of olives. Papa called for his vintage Bordeaux, muttering about how he'd saved it for a special occasion. And Antoine, the soon-to-be fiancé, smiled a little too tightly, as if he hadn't expected to be quite so involved in the spectacle. I waited. I smiled. I sipped wine and nodded and made polite noises. Then, when the conversation lulled just long enough, I cleared my throat. "I signed a contract," I said. Maison Verini. Their new digital campaign. Papa raised his glass in my direction. "Well done, Juliette." That was it. Then he turned to Margot and asked if she'd decided on a wedding date. That night, I walked back to my rented apartment in the 11th arrondissement, my boots clicking against the wet pavement. I thought of the earrings again. Not as a luxury, not even as a reward, but as a rebellion. A small, gleaming rebellion against every time I had been overlooked, every time steady had meant invisible. And I promised myself, next time I wouldn't wait for applause. Galerie Éclat was a quiet world of understated luxury, the kind of place where voices were meant to stay low and movements elegant. Crystal sconces glowed softly along the cream-colored walls, casting warm light over polished mahogany display cases. The air was subtly perfumed with oud, expensive, earthy, unforgettable. Even the jazz playing in the background seemed curated for sophistication. I hesitated outside for a moment, tugging at the sleeves of my olive green dress. It was tailored and tasteful, paired with ankle boots I'd saved months to buy, but walking into Galerie Éclat, I felt like a girl playing dress-up. Till I stepped inside. I had every right to be there. A poised saleswoman with short silver blonde hair greeted me immediately. Her name tag read Veronique. She gave me a kind, genuine smile, not the forced kind I'd learned to expect in high-end spaces. "Looking for something special?" she asked warmly. I nodded, nerves fluttering in my stomach but held in check by sheer will. Emerald earrings. Something elegant but meaningful. "Then you've come to the right place," she said. "Follow me." There was no trace of condescension in her tone. As she led me toward a display near the back, I let out a small breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Veronique spoke with enthusiasm, explaining gem clarity and design history with the ease of someone who truly loved her work. Her passion reminded me of my own when I talked about illustration, the way light shapes a character's face, the mood a single brushstroke can create. I started to feel almost at ease. And then the chime above the door rang. "Juliette? In here?" The voice hit like a shard of ice. Margot. She appeared in the entrance like a vision from a luxury campaign, tailored cream coat, stilettos, perfectly contoured cheekbones. Flanking her were Chloe and Inez, fellow influencers with matching smirks and phones always at the ready. Margot's eyes scanned the boutique until they landed on me. Then she smiled, sharp and sweet as lemon rind. "This place is a bit ambitious for you, no?" Her voice carried effortlessly, loud enough to draw glances from two women admiring a sapphire necklace. I felt Veronique tense beside me but say nothing. Before I could formulate a reply, Veronique intervened smoothly. "Mademoiselle Fontaine is exploring our emerald collection. Care to join?" Margot let out a laugh, crystalline and cruel. "Oh, we're sisters." Unfortunately, she looked me over as if I were an unwanted pop-up ad. "Juliette, are you sure you're not lost?" I swallowed hard. My cheeks flushed, but I kept my voice steady. "I'm buying earrings, Margot." I landed a big contract. Her eyes narrowed, lips curving into a mocking smile as Veronique lifted a pair of teardrop emeralds from the velvet tray. "Those?" Margot scoffed. "With your income? That's bold." Chloe stifled a laugh. Inez busied herself scrolling through her phone, avoiding eye contact. "It's a major contract," I said calmly, forcing my voice not to waver. "I've earned this." Margot picked up a diamond tennis bracelet from a nearby tray, then tossed it back carelessly, as if the display was a joke meant for her amusement. "You should be investing," she said, her tone laced with judgment. "Not wasting money trying to overshadow my engagement." There it was. The real reason she was here. I clenched my fists, trying not to let the words sink in. "This isn't about your engagement," I said sharply, my patience unraveling. "It's about me. I worked for this. I'm treating myself." She stepped closer, the familiar scent of her perfume, sandalwood and something overly sweet, filling my nose. "You're always trying to steal my spotlight." It's sad, really. Her voice carried, slicing through the quiet of the boutique. An elderly couple browsing cufflinks looked over. One of the sales assistants stopped mid-step near the ring section. Veronique, ever professional, lifted the earrings to my ear. "These complement your spirit beautifully," she said gently. But Margot wasn't done. "You're embarrassing yourself, Juliette," she snapped. "Spending a fortune to compete with my ring." I turned to her, about to answer, but didn't get the chance. Her hand lashed out, a sudden blur of motion. The slap landed with a sting that lit my skin on fire. The sound cracked through the boutique, silencing everything, the jazz, the whispers, the elegance. Just silence. I staggered back a step, stunned. My hand flew to my cheek, and I blinked rapidly. Not because it hurt, though it did, but because it was unthinkable. In 30 years, Margot had insulted me, mocked me, excluded me, but she had never struck me. Gasps filled the space. Veronique stepped back in shock. Chloe and Inez stared at the floor, their expressions suddenly void of laughter. A security guard near the boutique entrance began walking toward us, jaw tight. But before he could act, a man's voice rang out, firm, authoritative, unmistakably clear. "Touch my partner again and you'll regret it." I turned. Everyone did. A man, early 40s maybe, stood near the entrance, eyes like cut emeralds, sharp and intent. He wore a tailored charcoal suit that clung to his broad frame with understated elegance. His hair was dark, touched lightly with silver at the temples. A glint of gold on his wrist revealed a Patek Philippe watch. His presence was commanding, calm, but there was no mistaking the steel in his gaze. Margot blinked. "Who are you?" He moved closer, positioning himself slightly in front of me, not shielding exactly, but asserting. I said, "Don't touch her again." His tone wasn't raised, but the threat in it was undeniable. The security guard paused, assessing the shift in power. Veronique glanced between us, her mouth slightly open. "Your partner," Margot echoed, disbelief thick in her voice. I was too stunned to speak. I had never seen this man in my life. "I'm not," I began, but he interrupted smoothly, addressing the room, not just her. "I don't tolerate anyone attacking my partner in public." Not physically, not verbally. Margot's posture shifted. Her confidence faltered just enough to be visible. She took in the man's presence, his suit, his watch, his measured demeanor, and realized this wasn't a scene she could control. "There's been a mistake," she said quickly, trying to laugh it off. "You don't understand, she's my sister." He turned to me then, expression softening. "Clara, are you all right?" "Clara?" I stared at him, mouth slightly open. What was happening? Before I could answer, he returned his gaze to Margot. "I don't know what history you two share, and frankly, I don't care. What I just witnessed is unacceptable. Either you leave, or I'll make sure security escorts you out. Now." Margot's face flushed deep crimson, her expression contorted with disbelief and indignation. "Do you know who I am?" she snapped, the words slicing through the lingering tension. "She's my sister, not your partner. Her name's Juliette." The man, Lucien, blinked, finally turning to study me more closely. For a moment, his eyes softened with realization, and a flicker of embarrassment crossed his otherwise composed face. "My apologies," he said, his voice steadier than his expression. "From behind, you looked strikingly like my fiancée, Clara. But my point stands, your actions are inexcusable." I found my voice at last. It emerged more strained than I intended, but I held his gaze. "Who are you?" "Lucien Duval," he replied, extending a hand toward me with quiet formality. "And I'm truly sorry for the mix-up." The name landed like a small explosion in my mind. Lucien Duval, founder of Itoilitech. His company had been featured in countless business articles for revolutionizing AI-driven cybersecurity. Le Figaro, Les Echos, even Forbes France had profiled him. His face had become a fixture in tech circles. His rumored net worth placed him among the wealthiest in Paris. "You're Lucien Duval?" Margot's voice changed instantly, smooth, sweet, almost saccharine. Her indignation evaporated, replaced by performative charm. "What an honor! I'm a huge admirer of your work. AI fascinates me." Lucien didn't even glance in her direction. His focus remained on me, his voice gentler now. "Are you okay?" That looked painful. "I'm fine," I replied quietly, though my cheeks still throbbed from the slap. "Thank you for stepping in, even if it was a mistake." He gave a slight nod. "The mistake was mine, but my concern is real. No one deserves to be treated that way. Family disputes shouldn't turn physical." Margot tried to pivot, her voice light. "It was just a sisterly spat," she said with a laugh, waving her hand like she was swatting away a rumor. "You know how it is." But the lie was insulting in its audacity. "You slapped me because I wouldn't let you diminish my moment," I said, loud enough for those still watching to hear. My voice didn't tremble. "That's not true," she snapped, defensive now, glancing around to see who was listening. But Lucien's expression darkened. His tone sharpened, no longer accommodating. "I saw everything," he said, eyes fixed on her. "You mocked her achievement and lashed out when she stood her ground." That moment, a man in a pinstripe suit appeared from the hallway behind the cashier desk. He moved with quiet authority, his gait confident, his posture upright. Gaspard, the owner of Galerie Eclat, had arrived. He looked between Lucien and Margot, noting the mood in the room before speaking. "Monsieur Duval, is there an issue here?" His voice was calm, but his eyes were alert. Lucien nodded. "Yes. This woman assaulted another customer." Gaspard's expression shifted immediately. The hospitality in his features vanished, replaced by something sharper. "We have a zero-tolerance policy for violence in this establishment," he said flatly. He turned to Margot. "Mademoiselle, you and your companions must leave." Margot's jaw dropped. "This is absurd." "Juliette, tell them it was nothing." She looked at me as though expecting rescue, as though I would fall back into my old role, the quiet sister who smoothed over her tantrums and kept the peace. But those days were gone. I met her eyes evenly. "You slapped me because I bought earrings instead of bowing to your criticism." Silence followed. Gaspard gave a small signal, and the security guard moved forward. Chloe and Inez avoided eye contact, following the guard's lead without protest. Margot shot me one last look, venomous, sharp enough to cut. "You'll pay for this, Juliette," she hissed under her breath as she passed me. Her voice was low but unmistakable. The doors closed behind them, and the boutique gradually settled into a quiet, uneasy calm. Customers returned to their browsing, but the tension lingered like perfume in the air. I took a shaky breath, brushing my fingertips across the burning skin of my cheek. Lucien turned to me again, his expression softer now, almost apologetic. "I've complicated things," he said, his voice low. "Let me make it up to you coffee, perhaps, after you finish here?" I studied him, still processing everything. There was no arrogance in his face, no expectation, just sincerity. He had stepped in out of instinct, then stayed out of principle. His presence was jarring but strangely grounding. I gave a small nod. "All right. Coffee sounds good." Gaspard personally handled my purchase, apologizing for the scene. I signed for the earrings with trembling hands, the emerald studs now heavy with meaning. Lucien waited by the door, and we walked to Café de la Paix, a cozy spot near the Opera Garnier with velvet booths and the aroma of fresh espresso. "Over a cappuccino," he explained himself. "My fiancée, Clara, is in Berlin for a conference. You look remarkably like her, your auburn hair, your posture, even your dress. When I saw you get slapped, I acted without thinking." "It's okay," I said, sipping my latte. "You stopped things from escalating. Margot doesn't take kindly to being challenged." Lucien nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Family can be a labyrinth. My sister Isabelle and I had our own battles. She resented my success at Itoilitech, felt it overshadowed her career as a violinist. His openness surprised me. "Did it get better?" I asked. "With time," he said. "Honest conversations and space helped. She's now principal violinist with the Berlin Philharmonic." We talked for an hour, his billionaire status fading as he listened to my story, years of Margot's dominance, my parents' bias, and my fight to prove my worth. He gestured to the Galleria Claw bag. "Those earrings aren't just jewelry, are they?" "No," I admitted. "They're proof I'm enough, even if my family doesn't see it." Lucien smiled. "When I launched Itoilitech, I bought a vintage fountain pen, not for writing, but to remind myself I'd built something real." As we parted, he handed me his card. "Your design work sounds remarkable. Itoilitech needs talent like yours for our new consumer apps branding. Send me your portfolio?" Stunned, I nodded. Itoilitech was a dream employer, innovative, well-funded, with a reputation for nurturing creativity. Back home, my phone buzzed with 15 texts and 7 missed calls, Margot's rage, Maman's scolding, Papa's demands for an explanation. I ignored them, focusing instead on polishing my portfolio. If Lucien's offer was real, I wasn't going to waste it. The next morning, his reply came. "Juliette, your portfolio is exceptional. Our creative director, Sophie Laurent, wants to meet you Monday at 3 p.m. Confirm if that works. Regards, Lucien." My heart raced. An interview at Itoilitech was beyond anything I'd dared hope. That evening, I called Maman, bracing for her disapproval. "Juliette, why did you humiliate Margot?" she began. "Did she tell you she slapped me in public?" I countered. A pause. "She said it was a misunderstanding, that you provoked her." I laughed bitterly. "I was buying earrings with my contract bonus, something no one acknowledged at dinner. She attacked me because I wouldn't shrink." Maman deflected. "She's stressed about the wedding." That doesn't justify assault, I said. A billionaire, Lucien Duval, had to intervene. The store owner threw her out. Silence. Margot's devastated, Maman finally said. And I'm not, I replied. When did you last celebrate my wins? You've always chosen her side. Another pause. We don't choose sides, she said weakly. Maman, you've been doing it my whole life, I said, ending the call. Monday's interview at Ito Iliteca's sleek headquarters in La Défense was exhilarating. The building, all glass and greenery, buzzed with innovation. Sophie Laurent, a vibrant woman with a pixie cut and bold glasses, dove into my design philosophy, challenging me to critique their current app interface. Lucien joined, asking sharp questions about user experience. I spoke with a confidence I hadn't known I possessed, fueled by the earrings glinting in my ears. We'll be in touch by Friday, Sophie said, her smile promising. Lucien offered a tour, showing me collaborative workspaces, a rooftop terrace with views of the Eiffel Tower, and a meditation room with bonsai trees. What do you think? He asked. It's inspiring, I said. It feels like a place where ideas can breathe. He nodded. That's the goal. And Juliette, don't let your sister's actions dim your light. You showed real strength at Galerie Eclat. His words lingered as I drove home, feeling a shift in how I carried myself. That night, Margot called. We need to talk, she said, her voice tight. Fine, I replied. But I'm not apologizing. She bristled. You humiliated me in front of my friends. You slapped me in public, I shot back. That's assault, Margot. She scoffed. It was a tap. It left a bruise, I said. You did it because I dared to celebrate myself. Silence. You've changed, she said finally. Good, I replied. I'm done making myself small for you. Sunday's family dinner loomed. Maman's text was curt, dinner at 6. Papa's making bouillabaisse. Be prompt. I arrived at 6:10, a small act of defiance, wearing my emerald earrings and a burgundy dress. Margot sat in the living room, scrolling her phone, her expression souring as I entered. Nice of you to show up, she muttered. I ignored her, joining Maman in the kitchen. Can we talk about Galerie Eclat? I asked. She stiffened. Let's not spoil dinner, Juliette. Spoil it by admitting Margot hit me? I pressed. Papa joined us, frowning. What's this about? Margot slapped me because I bought earrings instead of letting her belittle me, I said. A billionaire and the store owner saw it. Margot stormed in. You're blowing it out of proportion. No, I said calmly. You crossed a line and I'm done excusing it. Maman tried to mediate. Families fight, Juliette. Let's move on. Not until you acknowledge her behavior, I said. I've spent years in her shadow and you've enabled it. The room fell silent. Papa looked weary. Those are striking earrings, he said, deflecting. New. Yes, I replied. From my contract bonus. The one you ignored. Dinner was tense, but Antoine's arrival shifted the mood. He greeted me warmly. Congrats on your contract, Juliette. Margot says you're a brilliant illustrator. I glanced at Margot, surprised she'd never praised me. Thanks, I said. And congrats on your engagement. Over dessert, Antoine noticed my earrings. Those are stunning. Margot mentioned your Galerie Eclat adventure. I smiled tightly, wondering what she'd told him. I also met Lucien Duval there, I said. He arranged an interview at Ito Ilitech. Maman's eyes widened. You didn't tell us. I didn't think you'd care, I said honestly. It's just work, not a life event. Friday brought news from Ito Ilitech, a job offer as senior visual strategist with a salary nearly triple my current earnings, stock options, and a creative development fund. I met Clara, Lucien's fiancée, over lunch, a sharp, warm woman who laughed about our resemblance. "Lucien told me about the slap," she said. "I had a similar sister growing up. Boundaries are everything." The job was a whirlwind of creativity, leading a team to shape Ito Iliteca's app branding. I moved to a loft in Le Marais with a balcony overlooking cobblestone streets, a fresh canvas for my new life. Margot's apology came weeks later, brief but real. "I shouldn't have hit you." "I'm sorry." I accepted it cautiously, and our texts grew less hostile, though not warm. At Maman's birthday dinner, Margot announced her pregnancy, and for once I didn't feel eclipsed. My earrings sparkled as I shared my Ito Ilitec role, and Papa listened, genuinely proud. As I walked through a sculpture garden with Clara one evening, I reflected on the slap that broke my silence. It wasn't just pain, it was a catalyst, pushing me to claim my worth. The emeralds glinting in my jewelry box weren't just stones, they were my story, a reminder that even the sharpest stings can lead to radiant beginnings. As I reflect on my journey, I've uncovered 5 powerful lessons that transformed my life, and I hope they inspire you to embrace your own path. First, own your worth. Those emerald earrings weren't just jewelry. They symbolized my hard-earned success, a reminder to celebrate myself despite others' indifference. Second, set firm boundaries. Standing up to Margot's toxic belittling and my family's favoritism taught me that protecting my peace is non-negotiable. Third, welcome unexpected allies. Lucien Duval's mistaken intervention showed me that strangers can open doors to life-changing opportunities, like my role at Ito Ilitec. Fourth, face conflict with courage. Confronting my parents' bias head-on without shrinking built a confidence rooted in my truth, not their approval. Finally, transform pain into purpose. The sting of Margot's slap became a catalyst, pushing me to claim a bolder future and redefine my place in the world. These lessons are universal, for anyone striving to rise above doubt or dismissal. Think about a moment that challenged you. What wisdom did it bring? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. If this journey touched you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more stories brimming with life-changing insights. Join our growing community to uplift and empower each other, turning every challenge into a stepping stone for growth. Thank you for being here and keep shining brightly.